And the other half of them held both the spears and shields and bows and the habergeons, and the rulers were behind all the house of Judah, which they builded on the wall, and they that bear burdens with those that laded, every one with one of his hands wrought in the work, and with the other hand held a weapon. Over, please, then to chapter 6, chapter 5:19. This is Nehemiah's prayer. Chapter 5:19. Think upon me, my God, for good, according to all that I have done for this people. Chapter 6, verse 14. He starts to pray for his enemies. My God, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat, according to these their works, and on the prophetess Nodiah, and the rest of the prophets that would have put me in fear. So the wall was finished in the 25th day of the month Elul, in 52 days. And it came to pass that when all our enemies heard thereof, and all the heathen that were about us saw these things, they were much cast down in their own eyes, for they perceived that this work was wrought of our God. And God will bless the reading of his precious word this evening. We saw last week, just a brief recap, we saw the call of Nehemiah, and we saw the challenge that Nehemiah faced, and we looked a little at the cost of the service that Nehemiah gave. We saw that this man brought rejoicing, and he brought revival to the people of God. That's a tremendous thing. He brought revival in his day, and he brought rejoicing to the people's hearts. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If we had men here who could bring gladness to the Lord's people's hearts and glory to the heaven above. You remember this, that he left a well-paid job. Maybe you're listening on Zoom or you're listening on a future date. You'll remember he left a good job. He worked in the palace. He left his job to go full-time in the work of the Lord. That's very important. He's going out full-time in the work of the Lord. He went on this basis. This is what we're recalling tonight. Any man who goes out to answer the call of God must go on this basis. Two things we learned. We learned that the first basis for going out into the work of the Lord is that their hearts were stirred by the Spirit. That's the first requisite. That your heart is stirred by the Spirit of God. What's the second requisite? That you're led to the place of service by the Scriptures. So, if ever a man says, I'm called of God, that man must be led, stirred by the Spirit. And that man must be led by the Scriptures. That's the test. And Nehemiah's heart was stirred by the Spirit, and he was led by the Scriptures of truth. He was led to the place where God wanted him to be. Now, last week we saw him weeping. 3 times over in chapter 1, he cries, I beseech thee. I beseech thee, I beseech thee. 12 times over in the book you'll find him praying. He prays 12 times. We learned this, and then I'll stop and we'll move on to the new part. We learned this. This is so important. That ever before that man lifted a boulder, that man had a massive burden from God upon his heart. And that's the blueprint for the work of the Lord. Ever before he lifts a boulder, he had a tremendous burden that God had placed upon his heart. You'll recall just briefly how he came into the service of the Lord. You'll remember this. We said last week, do you remember Elijah gave Elisha the mantle? For Nehemiah, there were no mantles. Nobody handing a mantle. You'll remember Moses at the burning bush. A miracle. There were no miracles. So there's no mantle. There's no miracle. What was there? Just a message from God. Just a message from God. And the message so affected him that he heard the call of God through the message. This man became a great leader. Say, how did he become a great leader? Let's speak about leadership for a minute. That's a very, very popular thing at the minute. All these places speaking about leadership. Well, the Bible speaks about leadership. He became a great leader. How? Number one, he mobilized all the people. We're going to look at how he did it. How did he mobilize the people? He visited all the families. Visitation. He visited every family of the nobles. He mobilized the people. He visited the families. Do you know what he did? He was able to settle the problems. We'll see that tonight. This was a leader who could settle problems. And here's the most important thing. He kept everybody working in harmony. He didn't go off on a tangent. You got it? He mobilized all the people. He visited all the families. He settled all the problems. And he kept them all working in harmony. God made this man, Nehemiah, a great leader of men. That's why the work was so completed so quickly. God sent a leader with a shepherd's heart who cared for all the people. Now, he cared for all the people. Don't tell me you're called of God if you don't care for God's people. He cared for all the people. We must do that. We must not only care for our peers, we must care for the pensioners. He was a man whose God heart had touched. There was no bosses here. Thank God there was no dictators here. We don't want bosses and we don't want dictators. But this was a mighty leader of men. A mighty leader. Can I say this to you? God gripped this man. I'd love to come sometime. It just came to me on Sunday morning when I was preaching. My wife was with me. It just came to me on Sunday morning to preach on all the men that God gripped. You think of Jacob standing at the brook Jabbok. Esau's coming behind him. Didn't want to cross the brook. And God gripped him. God gripped him. God took a grip of him. And when God gripped him, everything changed. The man that God gripped. This man, we read about it, he sat down. We spoke last week about him weeping. He wept. He didn't, see when it says he wept, you know the way you can weep for a minute or two and then you dry your tears and it's all over? No. This was prolonged weeping because it says he mourned. He mourned. He fasted and he prayed. One of the great marks of a man of God is this. Are you listening to me? That the man is sensitive to the people around him. And he was sensitive to the people around him. Can I say this to you? He was a burdened man. Have a wee look, please, at chapter 1, verse 1. There's a great lesson here. The words of Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah, and it came to pass in the month Chislew, in the 20th year, I was in the Shushan palace. See where we read in verse 1? That's December. That's December. Where we read in verse 1 is December. 4 months later, God speaks to him. How did he put the winter in? For 4 months? How did he put the winter in? He put the winter in by praying. He prayed for 4 months. Every morning he rose up. This man would begin to pray. For 4 months he prayed. Are you watching this? Before he ever left the palace. Before he ever spoke to anybody. He spent 4 months in prayer. 4 months. See, he had heard about the burnt gates. He heard that the gates were burned. He heard that there were burned gates. There were broken walls He heard about the blighted city. You know what he did? He listened. I think this is wonderful. He heard about the burned gates. He heard about the broken walls. He heard about the blighted city. You know what he did? He took the burned gates, he took the broken walls, and he took the blighted city, and he brought them all into the presence of the Lord. All into the presence of the Lord. What about bringing Armagh into the presence of the Lord? With all its problems, with all its issues, how this man could pray. He could call upon the character of God because he knew God. He could speak about the control of God in the nations. He could bring before the people the commandments of God. He could speak about the commitment of God through the covenant promises. And what does he do? The Bible says this man brings all these problems, burned gates, broken walls, and he brings them into the presence of the God of heaven. You know what happens when you do that? You know what happens when you do that? When you bring them all into the presence of the expanse of the God of heaven, it makes the things of earth grow strangely dim. The problems shrink. See, when you bring them into the presence of God, the problems begin to shrink in the majesty and the greatness and the power of God. Can we speak about Nehemiah? We spoke about him weeping. Can we speak for a minute on him waiting? You say, what do you mean he's waiting? Well, David waited 14 years. Did you know that? David had to wait 14 years. Nehemiah here has to wait 4 months. He learned that God wanted him to do something. You know the hardest thing to do in the Christian life is be still and know that I am God. There's times you've got to come aside and be still and know that I am God. You've got to wait God's time. Can I say this to you? You have got to wait till God opens the door for you. Don't push it yourself. Wait till God opens the door. Every day, this mom would pray. Can I say this very kindly? Don't be hasty. Take your time. Let God open the door. This mom was going to face moments. This mom was going to face moments of terror. See, in service for the Lord, you'll face moments of terror. I remember one night in O'Horey, and I think there were 13 people saved. 13 people saved. And I remember going out into the car park. For some reason, I went out to the car in the car park, and this girl had come up behind me in a shadow. And I was putting my Bible into the back of the car or something. And she said to me, you see, if I had a knife, I would stab you in the back right now. Moments of terror, you will face them. Nehemiah faced moments of terror. He faced moments of tears. He faced moments of tension. He faced moments of trials. What does he do? Watch this. What does he do in terror, tears, trials? What does he do? He learned this. Just to send a direct prayer into the presence of God. It's a wonderful thing to learn. He commits everything to the God of heaven. He was a man who was sent. He was a man who was supplied. He was a man who was supported. And in the end, he became a man who was satisfied. But he had to wait until the Lord opens the door. You know the only voice you want to listen to is the voice of the God of heaven. John chapter 20 says this. You know the famous sermon for all the missionaries, John chapter 20. So send I you. Famous words of the Lord Jesus. So send I you. On the basis of this, the stirring of the Spirit in your heart, the Word. You'll only go on the basis of the Word, the Scriptures. And you'll only go on the basis of the work, the Spirit. You know, and God sends them on. You know what the Bible says? The Bible says, a man's gift will make way for him. I want you to watch this now. A man's gift shall make a way for him. It doesn't say a man's friend will make a way for him. You know the way you do this here? A wee nudge. That's not of God. Doesn't say a man's friend will make a way for him. Doesn't say a man's colleague will make a way for him. It says a man's gift will make a way for him. A man's gift in God's time and upon God's basis. And that's what Nehemiah did. Nehemiah could say at the end of the book, he sent me. He was a sent man. So important that you're sent. He was a supplied man. The Lord met every need. If you're sent, I can guarantee you you'll be supplied. And in the end, he was a satisfied man. For in 52 days, he finished the work. You know what Moses cried when God sent him? He cried, show me thy face, O Lord. Is there somebody here tonight? And you'll make God cry? Show me thy face, O Lord. Just like tonight, the spring has come here. We're in the spring now with Nehemiah. The spring has come, and you'll look at chapter 2, verse 11. Chapter 2, verse 11. He'd prayed the whole winter, and it says in verse 11, so I came to Jerusalem and was there 3 days. See, when he went to Jerusalem in verse 11, you know what he saw? Do you know what he saw? Heaps of rubble, heaps of rubbish. How would you feel? How would you feel if God turned your life upside down tonight? All the things you'd get used to, all the comforts that you had, getting it right in handy. And God calls you to a place filled with rubbish. Do you know what I think he said in his heart? You know what I think he said in his heart when God called him to a pile of rubble? I think he said, if God helps me, I'll make a difference. When I get saved, I got a job in a butcher's factory. And I got the worst job in the place. My job was to sweep up all the oil guts and the bits and pieces that fell on the floor. I wasn't long saved. I knew what I said, Lord. I'm going to be the best brusher-upper of these guts that has ever been in this factory. I did. Wouldn't it be great if somebody that's listening to me tonight would open your heart and say, Lord, you see in Woodford, Lord, if you'll help me, I'll make a difference. Lord, I have a good position. Lord, I have a good career. But Lord, tonight I'll open my heart to you. If you open the door, Lord, I will make Woodford greater than it's ever been before. Have a look at verse 12, would you? Chapter 2. And I arose in the night, I and some few men with me. Neither told I any man what God had put in my heart to do at Jerusalem. Neither was there any beast with me, save the beast that I rode upon. And I went out by night by the gate of the valley. I went out by night by the gate of the valley. What's the wee lesson from that? It's dead simple, but it's so true. He looked before he leaped. He looked before he leaped. You know what he says? I'll not say a word, Lord, until you open the door. I'm not going to run about the assembly saying things. I'm not even going to run about the assembly giving hints. I'll wait, Lord. I'll look before I leap. And he surveyed the work. So important that you survey the work before you jump. And he opens up and he stirs up like-minded people. Let me say this. You'll not get up. Listen, a leader's got to take people with him. You've got to bring the people with you. You'll not always get everybody with you. The flesh will always be there. Jealousy will be there. The flesh will be there. You won't get everybody with you. But you've got to stir up like-minded people. And he got God's people with him. Would you hear this? And he got the cooperation with the brethren. And he starts to build the walls. Can I tell you what the walls speak of, and can I tell you what the gates speak of? The walls speak of separation. Every testimony, every person who has a testimony needs walls and gates. The walls speak of separation. The gates speak of communion. Say, how do you work that out? Well, you need to have walls around your testimony that keep sin and the evil one out. But you also need to have gates of communion that you can control what you let in to your life. That which you let into your life, can I say this to you, must be in the character of God. It must be in keeping with the character of God. It's kind of wonderful. You know what happened here? See, something that wasn't touched for years, something that wasn't touched, became a hive of activity. Do you know why? Look at verse. Here's a core lesson for you. Chapter 2, verse 17. Then I said unto them, he's speaking to the nobles here. Then I said unto them, ye see the distress that we are in, how Jerusalem lieth waste. You know what he did? He went to every family. He visited every family. You want to see souls saved? You want to see the work built up? Visit every family. He got to know everybody involved. You know what it involves? Knocking doors. That's what we don't like. Nobody likes it. Knocking doors. There used to be a wee pastor in Templemore Avenue in Belfast. He couldn't preach this. He came from Wales. He couldn't preach to save his life. Terrible. But you know what he did do, Robert? He knocked every door in the Newtonards Road. And within a year, he had the place bursting. What are you doing all day? How about we look at chapter 4, verse 6? So we built the wall, and the wall was joined together unto the half thereof, for the people had a mind to work. I like that. We'll just quickly deal with that. The people had a mind to work. That's Nehemiah working. People had a mind to work. The people had a heart to pray. The people had eyes to watch. That's what we need, a mind to work. Heart that will pray. Eyes that will watch. Nehemiah working. How about we look just at chapter 3, verse 5? We're trying to just cover what we can here. Chapter 3, verse 5. This is the disappointment that he suffered. And next unto them the Tekoites repaired, but their nobles put not their necks to the work of the Lord. Are you watching that? Their nobles put not their necks to the work of the Lord. Have a look at chapter 4, verse 10, please. And Judah said, the strength of the bearers of burdens is decayed, and there is much rubbish, so that we are not able to build the wall. Hey, what do you hear this lesson? See the men he was depending on, the men of Judah. Who were the men of Judah? These were the elite forces. These were the men that went before Israel in the battle. The men of Judah. The men that Judah says, you could put your life on these men. These men will be with you in the battle. And they're about to pull out on him. You couldn't rely on them here. They're about to pull out on him. The tribe that led the way in the battle, the men that you would have put your life on, when it come to the bit, they're about to pull out on him. Sure, that's always the way. But he mobilized the people that had a mind to work. Will you hear what he mobilized? The old people. Never write off the old people. Never write off the old people. He mobilized the middle-aged people. He mobilized the young people. He got them all together. Can I say this to you? Where the young people usually go astray is the fault of the generation before. Tell me this. Are we stoking up problems for the next generation here? Aren't we? By our example. Let me touch on a very touchy subject. The head covering. The head covering. Not take too long on it. You see, once we fiddle about, and once we start to weaken, and once we start to adjust, and try and suit the trends of the world, you know what you're doing? You're not doing away with it now, but you're setting a precedent and an example that could come back to bite you in the next generation. Do you know what God said? He said to Abraham, you know why God blessed Abraham? Do you ever notice this, why God blessed Abraham? It says, for he will teach his children. How important that is. That we don't weaken and water down. That we don't water down the headship of Christ. That we don't water down the gospel. That we don't start to say, you know what, we'll not bother with a gospel meeting on Sunday night. We'll not bother with it, sure. And we'll start to weaken the whole substructure of the assembly. Because it suits leisure time. I'm telling you, you'll only make a fire and something that'll come back to bite you. I'm challenging you. I'm not afraid of any man here. What example are you setting for the generation to come? You'll see Nehemiah. He bows in prayer, and you see a little pool of tears. You see, Robert and I discussed this last week. A little pool of tears. There's the tears. You know, the Bible speaks about the tears of the evangelist. With all humility and mind in tears. The tears of the evangelist. Paul says, the tears of the teacher. I tell you now, even weeping. I tell you now, even weeping. And then you'll see Nehemiah warring. There's foes within and there's foes without. There was endless personal attacks on him. Personal vendettas against him. Trying to destroy the work of God. They targeted him. But Nehemiah was a man of conviction. Have a wee look at chapter 5. You'll see a problem. Chapter 5. And there was a great cry of the people and of their wives against their brethren, the Jews. Big problem here. Here's what I like about Nehemiah. Watch this. There's a big problem arises here. Now see, once you get women in an assembly starting, you've got a problem. I mean, you've a serious problem. See, once you get women, bad enough the brethren, see, once you get the women starting, and if they have a genuine reason, you've got big problems. Now let me just say this. Here's what I like about him. You know what he did? He called out the problem. He didn't let on he couldn't see it. He didn't sweep it under the carpet. He stood up and he called out the problem for what it was. He called out the evil of the day. Nehemiah didn't skirt about. You know what was wrong here? Do you know what he did? The noblemen and the rulers had loads of money. And you know what they were doing? They were lending money to the poor people. And through lending money, they took their farms off them and their vineyards. And you know what they were charging them? 1%. How you say a year? No. 1% a month. 12% a year. Near as bad as the Northern Bank of Danske now. 12%. Can I just say this to you? That there should be no money loaned among Christians where interest is charged. No charge of interest. If a brother gets the loan of money, he pays the same amount of money back. No interest. Now Nehemiah went straight to them. And he says these things should not be. Big men exploiting wee men. And you know what happened? These little issues can become a distraction if they're not dealt with. And I admire this man. There was a lot of gossip and there was a lot of talk. And it's hard to go to the big men with the money. He went straight to them. And he said, this is wrong. He challenged what was wrong. Now watch this. The walls went up. We're nearly finished. You know what I love? Despite all the hassle, despite all the opposition, they couldn't stop the walls. They couldn't stop the walls. And despite all the trouble, they couldn't defeat the workers. Do you like that? They couldn't stop the walls. They couldn't defeat the workers. Now he's attacked in chapter 6. You have to see this. Chapter 6, he gets an attack again. Verse 2. We'll read verse 1, couple of verses. Now it came to pass when Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem the Arabian and the rest of our enemies heard that I had builded the wall and that there was no breach left therein, though at that time I had not set up the doors upon the gates, that Sanballat and Geshem sent unto me, saying, come, let us meet together in some one of the villages in the plain of Ono. But they thought to do me mischief. Now, you know what this is? This is kind of like the ecumenical movement. And know what they're saying? Know what they're saying here? Come on, and we'll all have a big meeting together. Now, Robert Thewett, he pointed this out to me. He was way ahead of me. He heard this years ago, but you mightn't have heard it. Did you notice where they were wanting to have the meeting? Verse 2. In the village of Ono. Come on, we'll have a big meeting in Ono. I love this. Do you know what? He's laughing already. Do you know what Nehemiah said? Oh, no. Oh, no. Now, here's what I want to hammer home. Are you listening? They wanted to get Nehemiah to a doubtful place. Brethren, do not go to doubtful places. Many's a man has been destroyed by being lulled into going to doubtful places. The devil will come at you. Sometimes the Christians will come at you. Sometimes correspondence will come at you. Sometimes even on the computer. This computer thing at the minute is terrible. They'll come at you. But Nehemiah never got diverted. He never got diverted. The work was finished. He says, God put it in my heart. Can I say this to you in Woodford? You know, I love the place here. And it's easy to come to preach here because I love the people. Can I tell you this? Keep at the work. Keep at the work. Keep humble in the Lord's service. And then let's finish with these two verses. Chapter 5, verse 19. Think upon me, my God, for good, he says, according to all that I have done for this people. And then chapter 6, verse 14. My God, think thou upon Tobiah and Sanballat according to these works, and the prophetess Noadiah, and the rest of the prophets that would have put me in fear. Now you'll be glad to hear this. So the wall was finished in the 20th and 5th day of the month of Elul in 52 days. You know, the great academics of the time, Plato and all these other boys who were around at the time of Nehemiah, can I tell you this? Their names have perished. Their names have perished. This man's name will never be forgotten. There's a great prayer in the New Testament, and it's a prayer for every day. You know what it is? When you wake up in the morning, there's a great prayer. You know what the prayer is? Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? There's a place to build. Say, where's the place to build? It's Woodford. That's where the focus should be. Place to build. Don't be diverted. The devil can have you running about the place all over the country. There's a work here, a place to build. You have a home assembly. Armagh, can I tell you this? There's no need to look to Africa. Not that there's any harm in going to Africa. I'm all for it. Or Romania. I'm all for it. There's a mission field down here. I'm going to ask you again, what about the houses around here? I feel guilty myself because when I drive up, I drive by them. Do you know the people in the houses? Do you know them? Are you like the wee pastor in Templemore Avenue? Knew every neighbour. You know them people are going to hell. It's a bugbear of mine that so many assemblies are put in places and they don't even know their neighbours. There's a place to build, Woodford. There's a part to play. And there's a prayer to pray. I beseech thee, O Lord. I was preaching last night, and I preached on Stephen. It's an awful scene. See, when they stoned him, it used to be they threw you over the cliff and then they threw stones on top of you, but they didn't do it legally. When they stoned Stephen, he stood there. Now, he must have stood there for quite a while, and he was pelted with stones. He managed to stand for quite a while. And then he came to the point, it's so sad, he came to the point where he knew he was going to die. And it says he kneeled down. How did he die? He died praying. He died praying. He died a praying man. He died not only praying, but he died in peace. Because it says the Lord that he fell asleep. Now here, this is 3 lines and I'm finished. I think a world of you down here. I think a world of you. Pray for you. Pray for Woodford. Now here's a wee warning before I go. Things not to cast off. Cast not off the old plans. Cast not off the old paths. Cast not off the old place. And cast not off the old-fashioned praise. You know what Nehemiah said at the last? I think it's brilliant. I wish I could go on an hour, Raymond. Can't, I'll be in trouble. You know what he said at the last? I think it's great. For we will not forsake the house of our God. May we say that in our hearts tonight. For we will not forsake the house of our God. What a man. Weeping, waiting, warring, working, worshipping. May God raise up men like Nehemiah in our day and generation who will follow the old paths. For it's the old paths that always led to blessing. May the Lord richly bless you.